Is 5G a threat to airline security? It's a big question facing the world at this time. The 5G rollout scare had Air India cancelling some of its recent flights to the United States. But now the flights have resumed after the world's largest aerospace company, Boeing, cleared Air India to continue its operations. Now, apart from Air India, Emirates and Japan's two major airlines also curtailed their Boeing 777 flights at this time. British Airways has opted to switch aircraft from the usual Boeing 777 to an Airbus A380 on some flights to Los Angeles. But what is this scare really all about? What does 5G have to do with it? It's due to a potential 5G signal interference with existing aircraft security systems. Now let me tell you first what the issue really is. At the heart of all of it is a nagging fear that the latest round of 5G spectrum will pose a threat to commercial airlines and their passenger safety. The airline industry and mobile phone companies are fighting over a particular chunk of spectrum from 3.7 to 3.98 gigahertz, also referred to as the C-band. I'll tell you more about that in a bit. Airlines are worried that this C-band 5G signals will interfere with their onboard equipment. In particular, they're worried about what's called a radar altimeter, a device on aircraft that measures how far above the ground an aircraft is actually traveling at any given time. Now, altimeters operate in the 4.2 to 4.4 gigahertz range, and the concern is that 5G frequencies, that is 3.7 to 3.98 gigahertz, sits way too close to this particular range that these devices operate on. Now, here's what the airlines say. Airlines say that 5G interference with the aircraft's radio altimeter could actually prevent engine and braking systems from transitioning to the crucial landing mode, which could prevent an aircraft from actually stopping on the runway once it touches down. A faulty altimeter reading can also trigger automated response from autopilot systems that, as you can imagine, can be totally catastrophic. Now, US airlines have warned the directives would bar the use of radio altimeters at about 40 of the biggest US airports and could therefore disrupt up to 4% of daily flights, and you can imagine that's already huge. It could render a significant number of aircraft unusable, causing chaos for US flights and potentially stranding tens of thousands of passengers overseas. Now, what difference does this frequency actually make, even though they're so close together? Now, the higher the frequency in the spectrum, the faster the service. So in order to get full value from 5G, operators want to operate at higher frequencies. Now, some of the C-band spectrum auctioned had been used for satellite radio, but the transition to 5G means there will be enormously more traffic at this time. But what do the telecom companies, what do the mobile companies say? Verizon and AT&T, for instance, have argued that C-band 5G has been deployed in about 40 other countries without any aviation interference issues. They've agreed to buffer zones around 50 airports in the US for 6 months to reduce any interference risks until there is total faith that this interference is not really an issue. But why is this not an issue elsewhere? Why only concerns in the US if it's not a concern elsewhere? Now, the issue is specific to US airspace. Throughout Europe and Asia, they have a lower frequency than the service set to be rolled out in the United States. In Europe, for instance, the auctioned bandwidth for mid-range 5G frequencies sit in a 3.4 to 3.8 gigahertz range. The spectrum used similarly in France, 3.6 to 3.8, sits further away from the spectrum of 4.2 to 4.4 used for altimeters in the United States. In South Korea, for instance, the 5G mobile communication frequency is 3.42 to 3.7 gigahertz. And there has been no report of interference since the commercialization of 5G way back in April 2019. So as the world opens up, as civil aviation gets back on track, this is the next big challenge the world will be facing.